McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood back in front.
The seed, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm is erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald,
Would you be surprised if I told you that round 23 was just as wild as every other round of the AFL season and just really putting the cherry on top of what was an unpredictable season to say the least? But man, we're heading into the finals. There's so much stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on with the non-finals teams as well. And so, the whole footy world is just ablaze at the moment. And there really is no better time to be a fan of the sport. But thank you so much for joining me. Of course, Ross Allen with Fourth and Long, joined alongside by the AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess. Also, you might have noticed if you're watching on video, we got two very special guests joining us here today. So I'm going to throw on over to you guys. Tell us what you're about and who you are, please.
Juwan next to Don, except my Steves, and you know what's going on? Yes, Lord. And it's Steves the Don AFL, trying to spread the word of footy. Just know us American blokes over here are on our job, on the mission to spread footy as much as we can. Y'all check out Fourth and Long. We ain't the only ones, man. We're trying to take over.
Hey, it's all about that American footy fan base. It's growing. It's spreading like a wildfire over here. So I think there's really no better time to it's great because we got people like us that are able to reach out and connect with the American audience. And also a great chunk of ours is Australian as well. So it's nice to kind of bridge the gap of the Pacific Oceans. But Donnie, how are we feeling after round 23 as well?
I am feeling good. It's great to have the Steves and Don's YouTube channel on here. I try to keep an eye on these guys' channels. I love them. They're another great source of footy content. I love the uniques, and I love to share the love of YouTube content and footy lovers, because you want to know what? We love this sport. We love working and sharing the love. So gentlemen, it's great to have you on the channel, and can't wait to talk a little footy tonight.
Really appreciate that for sure.
It's going to be a good time, whether you're a part of us, one of us four right now, or one of the lucky people and fantastic people that are tuning in today. But of course, in this finals preview, we're going to take a look at a short recap of round 23 here. Then we're going to take a look at each of the 8 teams that made the finals and give us a reason why they are going to win the grand final or why they're not going to win the grand final. And then, of course, we're going to get you our predictions in finals bracket, which is, it was so tough to tip these games, but we're going to have to do it. It's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off. I just had to kind of pick a couple of these teams, just go with it. All right, I'm sticking with it. But, you guys, let's start with the round 23 breakdown. I'm going to run through my thoughts, and so when I'm done here, just going to need to go ahead and see what you guys thought of it, give you a few takeaways from here. But round 23 started off very hot with a fun game between the West. Well, I mean, fun if you're a Port Adelaide fan, I guess, or a Brisbane Lions fan. Then you really enjoy this one. But the Western Bulldogs have now dropped 3 in a row. They drop out of the top 4 as Port Adelaide comes from behind to steal the win late. As Port Adelaide scoring 3 straight goals in the fourth that propelled them to this win here. Richmond came roaring back in the fourth against the Hawks, and they kind of cut the Cinderella story short. And they force a draw, and they end the season on a meh note going on here. Sydney, they put an absolute beat down on the Gold Coast Suns to finish 6th in the competition. And they cap off another just tough season for all, let's go with 19 of those Gold Coast Suns fans. Obviously took a hit like this one. They're not ending the season on a hot note, that's for sure. They had the Brisbane Lions. They propelled themselves into a top 4 spot with a 38-point win. And they, I kind of wrote this one and another one before I saw those jumpers hanging up on the back of that wall if you're watching here on video. But let's go with the Brisbane Lions put a fork into an extremely disappointing season for the Gold Coast Eagles. I'll give you time. It's a tough scene. I saw this.
Yeah,
I saw
I
the
know.
jumper. I was like, oh no, they're not gonna like this.
We know the pain, gentlemen. We know the pain.
Oh man, then we went to the match of the round easily, and one of the best matches of the year, because we had the captain kicking after the siren goal for Melbourne to propel them to a minor premiership. And this is just a ridiculous game. Now the Cats have lost 2 of the last 3. They appear to be stumbling into the finals. Or did they lose this game on purpose? Because according to one of the coach Donnie Hess's stat from a few rounds back, the number 1 team, the My Premier team, has not had a very good time when it comes to winning grand finals. So, hey, they might have lost this game on purpose. So, Melbourne, you're cursed, and it's time for you to break it this year. We'll see if you can. Then we had the GWS Giants clinching the 7th spot in the finals, and they put an end to the misery of those Blues fans. Poor Blues fans. I'm so sorry. But they finished up the season there. And this game really could have been a whole hell of a lot worse too, because GWS kicked 17 behinds in this one.
Expected it to be.
Right? They kind of took a page out of Fremantle's book when it comes to goal kicking. And speaking of Fremantle, I'm so sorry about you guys too, because most Freo thing of the season happens as it loses by 58 to St. Kilda with the spot in the finals on the line. It's just, it's almost good, man. It's almost good that they just kind of do everything now. Maybe they can try to get their captain Nat 5 back and reset for next year. I guess we'll see what they can do. Maybe, hopefully, they spend most of practice just kicking through the middle goal. You know, the one that gets you 6 points, not the 2 ones on the side. I feel like they had those confused this season. Then with the Essendon Dons, they clinch a finals trip with an impressive 38-point margin over the Collingwood Magpies, who has some issues on the field for this game, and obviously a lot of stuff going on off the field with the good old Ross Lyon action. We'll see how that plays out this offseason. And then in the most anticlimactic game of the season, we had the 2 worst teams duking it out, and we had Adelaide winning the battle of the wooden spoons. They beat North Melbourne, even with just awful goal kicking. But gentlemen, let me know what you guys thought about this round. Like your biggest takeaways for this.
All right. So my biggest takeaway this round is the lack of respect and love for West Coast. We had a great game against Brisbane. I think it was one of our best games these past few rounds for sure. But come the fourth quarter, the game wasn't against us anymore. The game was Brisbane against the Bulldogs for the 4th spot on the ladder. And it's like we didn't even matter anymore. And I West Coast, we should take disrespect to that. And it was a bad look. We did a decent game, but, you know.
If it makes you feel better, I bought into the hype of West Coast and when the preseason started and had them win the grand final. So,
Oh man,
That shit went to shit fast.
a couple of my takeaways. Dogs just continually disappoint, so that's just a big question mark going into finals.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best time. I remember they were saying it was good for the Dogs to go through this. Right now, it's like, nah, I'm not really buying into any of that. It's not a good time. This week was the time to really win. Didn't do that, so that's a big question mark. Sydney all right, so every time Gold Coast lose, I really get more and more pissed off because they really whooped our ass so bad. Anytime, and it's just like we were the one break for Gold Coast. You see what I'm saying? Like they really were getting their ass whooped. Like, matter of fact, I think the last time they were good was when they were up on Brisbane that one half, and then remember they folded that second half, and then they were just ass. Carlton, we whooped their ass, and then ass. After that, it's like I don't understand it, and it's really disappointing. Geelong really shit in the bed, as the Australians say.
mm-hmm.
Like you said, dropped 2 of the last 3. Was it Cameron Guthrie kicked it out on the floor right there and turned the ball over, and I'm not sure if it was close.
Who you think shit the bed more, Geelong or the Dogs this round?
This round, Dogs. You lost to Port, and Port.
You should not have lost
That
that
was a
game.
respectable team.
At Marvel too. At Marvel too. And Marvel has been a hunting ground for the Bulldogs this year. Not to jump into that, but
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, gentlemen. I think the Bulldogs were the most disappointing just because they have kind of fallen apart since they lost Josh Bruce to the ACL, and they've just that vaunted midfield has not been what it has been. And if I'm a Doggies fan right now, I'm a tad bit concerned. You're facing a very hot Essendon team going into the finals a team that just beat you earlier in the year. Now it's not going to be a simple
scariest team to anyone in the comp right now.
exactly,
From 1 to 7.
I
and
think
then
Tim English is very important in that because they don't know whether he wants to be in the ruck or at the forward, and they have issues in both. So wherever they put him, they're gonna have issues everywhere else, bro. And it's just,
Was that a coin flip right there?
Well, the only thing that I would say though too is keep an eye on it. Sounds like Steph Martin might be back, which I think is a good addition because he's played in the finals of Brisbane last year, but he hasn't played in an AFL game in many, many rounds. So how AFL ready is he going to be? That's the biggest question. But I think their ruck issue right now is what's killing them because they need a good ruck to be able to get it to that vaunted midfield. But they're going up against a ruck in Essendon that's really, really playing well right now, and a midfield that's just as talented. So that'll be quite interesting to look at it really quickly. And for Steez, just to remind you, I don't know if you remembered this, my Swans lost to Gold Coast by 40 earlier this year. So if that makes you feel just a tiny bit better, that you're not the only one that got randomly nipped by them. The Swans lost to them by 40 earlier in the season. So
it doesn't make me feel better because we lost to them right after we lost to North.
Oh, oh, that's.
And then we're as disappointing as we are the whole season. You see how I just got up? Like as disappointing as we have been this season, we still were in the chase for finals at the end of the season. And we got all our tough teams out the way in the beginning. Then we lost to North, we lost to Gold Coast, and then it was a wrap, bro. I was like, all right, we're not
nothing wrong losing to North, man. They might have been the greatest wooden spoon team of all time.
Their biggest issue was the first 5 weeks of the season when they got themselves so far in the hole. And
first 8, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Their first half of the season was atrocious, and they played so much better once Coach Noble really kind of got them together. The Geelong Melbourne game, ridiculous, crazy ending. Tom Stewart's injury, I think, is going to loom very, very large for the Cats as this season goes on. The Giants finding a way into the finals after last year choking it away, unfortunately, on that one. I love my Dockers fans, but again, your team finds a way to lose one they absolutely couldn't afford to lose, thus making Essendon not even have to win to qualify for the finals in their next one. And then
so it doesn't matter.
The battle of the last two wooden spoons in Adelaide gets the win. So it's just, I agree, an anticlimactic Sunday. But my gosh, 8 absolutely fantastic teams make the finals. This is probably one of the most difficult bracket picks I have ever seen because any of these 8 teams, if they get on a roll, can win the flag at the end of September.
Well, I felt crap when I was going through because each team that I had to win the grand final, I'm like, no, I don't think they will. I was just going through each kind of like scenario, and each time I felt wrong. It's a tough one, but of course you'll have to wait for that until then here, because what we're going to roll into next is we're going to take a look at each of the 8 teams, and we're going to give you guys a reason of why they can win the grand final or of why they shouldn't even be considered flag contenders here. But let's start things off. We're going to go from 8 to 1. All right, so of course that first team is going to be the Essendon Dons here. Man, the Bombers have really made a statement. Like I said when Donnie was talking, is that they're probably the scariest team to play in the top 8 right now. I'd be a little more afraid to play Essendon than I would be to play like a Port Adelaide or a Melbourne or any team in that top 4 right now, to be honest. Because each one of them have their faults. I mean, Essendon of course has their faults here, but they're just riding on a hot streak. So what I think is really why they can win the grand final this year is that, of course, Jake Stringer and Darcy Parish, anytime you talk about the success of a team, you got to throw those 2 guys in. But I really want to key in on essentially, no one expected them to even really make the finals this year. Mid-season, I was getting a lot of hate for saying that they're going to be finals or flag contenders within 3 to 5 seasons. Obviously, that's a good stretch of time. They're here now. So this team is scary, and I just love their pretty much. They got nothing on the line in this one. They have no expectations. If they lose the first round to, that really wouldn't be like an indictment to them. But if they go on a run here, they just have everything to gain, and that's a scary team to play against.
Okay, so Essendon, the reason they won't make the grand final, I think. The reason I think they can win the grand final. I think they have like the strong midfield.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are kind of lacking in the forward area. I think they don't have the Brisbane forward line. They don't have the Geelong forward line, right? But they do have like the inside 50 kick of Zach Merritt and it just looks. Sometimes he just makes it easy. So if you just do the basic things that a forward needs to do, rather than doing things over the average, you know what I'm saying? If they, what am I trying to say? If the forwards don't have to play extraordinary, they just have to do exactly what a basic forward needs to do when you have a midfield who can get the ball to you. So I think that's a good reason that's something that they have going for them that some other teams may not have. But also they have some youth problems there. They have some young players in there, and I don't think sometimes if the bigger team might get into you, like Geelong, I mean not Geelong, but the Dogs, they can be a physical team at times in the midfield. So I don't know if they can really necessarily build up to that pressure. So
For me, I'm not believing all this Essendon hype. I think
Wow,
if any
shoot them down
team
like that.
Yeah, I think if any team has the biggest chance of losing, it's Essendon against any of the other 7. I think Essendon just isn't consistent to me. They have great players, they have great spurts, but they don't bring it together on a consistent basis enough to really compete. And I can see them getting a round or two, but making it all the way to the grand finals, I'm not seeing that. The Dogs, who they're going against the first round, I think they're definitely comparable in their play style. It's definitely a strong midfield. It's just finishing shots on either end. I think Essendon they're not consistent enough. It's going to come down to how much they want it, how aggressive they play. It's a possibility, but I'm not buying into it.
Okay, fair enough.
the midfield will have to defend really, to really win.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. All great points. For me, I'm one of those, for people that have watched this channel, they know I'm a momentum guy. I'm one of those, how are you doing in your last 3 games? And right now, it is hard to argue that Essendon is not one of the hottest teams going into the 8 because they have won so many games. They are playing really well, and they are not at 100%. I mean, considering Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody, who's an absolute excitement machine, has not been on the field the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I connect with last year is one of the people everybody talks about every year going to the finals is Dusty Martin. For Essendon, they've got Jake Stringer, who can be Dusty-like. He can take over a game and literally flip it on its head like that. And when you have a guy like that, and several of these teams in the finals have one player on their team that when push comes to shove, they can literally take over a game. When you have Jake Stringer, when he wants to, he can literally change a game. That is the reason why I think Essendon has a shot to get to the grand final, because if Stringer has a good finals campaign, he is damn near impossible to stop. You just have to hope he's not on target, because if he can put 4 goals away, he is a pain in the ass, plain and simple. And then I completely agree with you, Don. Essendon's inconsistency may get them. They are a young team. They have a lot of inexperience. They don't have a lot of finals experience. I mean, as I said in the last episode here, they have not won a final since 2004. There is literally a website with a counter of all of the days that they have not won a final. So there's a lot of pressure on this Essendon team for being an 8 seed. There is a lot of pressure. I think they're of the bottom 2 teams. They're the ones that a lot of people are looking at going, they got a good shot against the Dogs. And I think they do. But this is the matchup that'll be quite interesting. Can the Dogs rebound, and can Essendon continue the hot streak that they're on? So that's why I think Essendon can or cannot make a grand final.
I want to add one thing. Talking about Stringer, I know he can be Dusty light, but I also think every one of these teams in the 8 has a player of that caliber, and I think it falls down back to the second best player with most of these guys. And Essendon's second best isn't as good as the rest of these teams' second best, in my opinion.
That's a
valid argument. Argument.
I like that. Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at that there. We'll see who will be the guy to back up Jake Stringer. Is it the aforementioned Anthony McDonald and Tip and Woody? Very good case you can make there. And I'm just excited to see the matchup of the midfields. I mean, with Darcy Parish going up against some of the big guys that they have with the Western Bulldogs in that midfield, it's going to be a flat-out disposal off in this game. Of course, we'll get to the tipping of that one later. Let's roll into the 7th team and the GWS Giants. And with this team, there's and kind of going to your point about having that secondary guy. I think if there's one of these teams that has that. I mean, you could easily make that point for GWS because obviously, like they have been this whole season when he's in the lineup, Toby Green has the ability to decide how this GWS team looks, how many goals they're going to kick, how they're going to look offensively, how strong they're going to look defensively, kind of just the attitude of this game. But also, I mean, they've shown time and time again this year that they haven't needed him to win, but they're going to have him back. Also, a guy making his return is going to be the captain, Stephen Coniglio. So that's going to be a huge spark to this team. I'm really excited to see how he comes out and how kind of they play him in this game. But I think, I mean, pardon the pun, but I just love the giant momentum swings that this team can bring from time to time. Could be absolutely deadly. And they are on a bit of a hot streak going to the finals here. And so I'm really excited about that. And if you look at, like, backup guys, like, I mean, Mumford's been huge to them. Even Himmelberg's been huge. Hogan's been huge to them. Then, I mean, if you look at the last few rounds, Tim Taranto has turned into just an all-out force. And same thing with Sam Taylor. So I'm really excited to see what the Giants could bring to the finals. And my first time seeing them in the finals. So I'm really excited about this team.
So, reason why GWS... Fuck GWS, you see how I barrack for, right? But the reason why GWS can't win is because they faced adversity all season. They've been hurt all season. They found a way to get it done. They beat top teams in the top 8. They beat bottom teams. They beat teams all down the ladder. You know what I'm saying? And when they really win, even whether it's a blowout, they can find gritty ways to win the game, even when it's not going in their favor. Like you said, they just won this Carlton game. They had 17 behinds. Despite the goal accuracy, they still won the game. So that's why they can't win. If they can't, I think the injury bug might catch them. Like the injury effect, also just the pressure and how the minutes that all the players in the regular season just have had to play due to all these players being out. I don't know if their body will hold up, especially going against the team's best, theoretically playing in finals. I'm just not sure if they'll be able to hold up after that.
Honestly think GWS has a great chance at winning. It just depends on how bad they want it. GWS to me is one of the most emotional teams, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying as when they all put their mind to it, they can get it done against any team, no matter what. It's just they have to want it. I've seen so many games when GWS lose, it's just because they kind of let up pressure. They kind of give up on themselves. That's why I like Toby Green so much, because he's been that spark plug, that barometer for them a lot of the year that just helps them keep their head down and focus on the win. And when they do that, they can get the wins for sure. I like GWS as a finals contender.
And for me, there's one name that you said, Ross, that I've been shocked that he's made such an impact, and that's Shane Mumford. I mean, Shane Mumford
Man, love that guy.
For a withered down, beaten old gentleman who just literally goes out there to be an enforcer, he has made such an impact on this team because he just changes games. He's not the greatest ruck in the world. I mean, when he runs, the ground shakes. I mean, it's plain and simple. But the biggest thing
has worse running for him or Mason Cox?
It's like comparing that's like comparing a bowling ball and a feather. I mean, that's literally the difference. I mean, one's a bowling ball, Mumford's a bowling ball, and Mason Cox is a baby deer, to quote Dean Rampey from the Sydney Swans. No, Shane Mumford just made such an impact on this team. When he plays, they win. When he doesn't play, they don't. So it'll really see the impact there. And the reason they may not make the finals is their inconsistency of form. They've been a team that's off and on. They've never really put in 3, 4, 5 games in a row where they have consistently played top tier footy. And that, especially being in the bottom part of the ladder where you're going to have to win 4 to win a grand final, that's not a recipe for winning a flag. They may win the first game. They may win the second game. But that third game, that preliminary final, where you're playing one of the top 2 teams, most likely, that's going to be what could potentially bite this GWS team. This is going to be an incredible finals because, again, each and every team in this 8 is dangerous in their own way.
Yep.
And Donnie, to your point with the whole Shane Mumford thing, real quick, I want to give you this stat because I threw it out last round after their win over the Tigers. But I mean, they've been able to win games. They have more games won than lost without Toby Green. But without Shane Mumford, they are they're 8 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw with him. And without him, they're just 2-7. So the mummy factor is a real thing.
Another player that I don't think we talked about was Lockie Whitfield. I think he can be such a damaging player just off the run and carry. I can't remember what game in particular it was this season. He really was turning up, and I know he had the liver or the kidney injury they had early in the season that didn't let him play. And
Lacerated
PWS
liver,
wasn't on top of their game early in the season, and I think he's a player that helps them stay together too. And he's a really underrated player that sometimes doesn't get talked about.
Hey, I love it. I'm glad we can talk about GWS and underrated players. It makes me feel happy. But let's take a look at the 6th team here, and that, of course, is going to be the Sydney Swans. So I'm going to actually have Donnie start us off here. This is your team. Give us your breakdown.
Get the Swan supporter to start it off.
Yes, sir.
I'm an opposite. I'm gonna start why they can't make it to why they can't. I think a couple of injuries right now have hit at the worst possible time. Joey Kennedy potentially being out with a hamstring injury against this game against GWS could be absolutely devastating, especially with the big bodies of GWS in the midfield with Ward and with Tom Green. So I think their injuries may be the reason that they don't go very far. But the thing though is the reason that they can is because this is just a team that nobody expected them to be there. This is a team that finished 16th last year. This is a team that's very, very young, considering I think at least over half of this team do not have any finals experience at all. So there's a ton of youth, a ton of young talent. Now, does that breed a championship? Not usually, especially here. But the way this team has played most of the season, you just cannot doubt this team. They play really well together. They have such good ball movement. They're very good defensively. So each game is going to be a test for them. But for me, the Swans, as a Swan supporter, I'll put my red glasses on here for just a second. The Swans right now, for me, I'm happy they got there. Whether they go far in this finals or not, it is not really a big deal because nobody expected them to be here. This is a bonus for every game that they play in the finals is a bonus, but they're scary good when they're on. And the way Buddy played against Gold Coast, if I'm Sam Taylor, if I'm the GWS backline, I'm terrified because if Buddy goes the way Buddy can, OMG, they are going to be so hard to stop because Buddy will draw defenders, which will open up Papley. It'll open up Heaney. It'll open up Wicks. It'll open up Hayward. And when you've got 4, 5, and 6 guys that can kick goals, that's incredibly difficult to stop.
See, luckily there, though, I mean, going back to GWS and Geelong, we saw Sam Taylor absolutely shut down one of the best goal scorers and the big guy, too, in Tom Hawkins over there. So, he's going to need to. There's going to be a lot of pressure on that young man there in this game. He's going to have to play a big game, and if he's able to at least limit Buddy Franklin, that's going to prove huge in terms of the final score in that game.
I agree.
Sydney is a double-edged sword to me. I think, like you said, the youth and the lack of playoff experience or finals experience is definitely going to catch up to them at some point. I don't know when because they do have a great team. Their hustle is going to be one of the hardest things to put up with because they'll outrun you all day long if you let them. I'm upset they matched up with GWS this first game, even though I think it's going to be a great game. They're both the 2 wild card teams, in my opinion, that could make a run for the grand finals. It's just Sydney relies. I think they rely heavily on Buddy because Buddy makes such a difference when he's on the field. And when he's off the field, the flow of the ball, the flow of the game is just so much slower, so much more unorganized. But because their hustle, they can always make something happen. Sydney's just such a question mark. They're the biggest wild card to me, for sure.
The reason why I think Sydney can win the grand final, I think y'all pretty much talk about it. You have the Buddy factor. You have just the superstar players that show up on time, and it just seems like they just know when to turn it up, like Papley and like Heaney. He's such a timely player that just seems to do things at the perfect time. I always seem to deal with a first-hand experience with Carlton. Like, these players fuck us up. You got Buddy, who just like he can impact the game just in any manner. And Luke Parker, I just believe in those players. Also, just the way I've seen as the season went on, the coach, he believes in the group. I went on to say earlier in the season that this team reminds me of the Phoenix Suns, how they played this season. Just the gritty team, kind of written off, but have continually chugged and chugged as the season went on. And if they continue to win in the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. But okay, the reason why I think they won't win it, I think you touched on it, the injuries. Josh Kennedy, that will hurt. I also think Nick Blakey, he's been pretty damaging in the same way Lucky Whitfield has been in this season, just off the run and carry and the inside 50 kick or kick to the midfield that need to be done. So I'm not sure. There's not really too many reasons to believe why Sydney can't.
It's not.
There's not really too many reasons. It's just up to them. Like
I mean, it's really just the youth, bro. If they really put their heads into the game and focus, all 4 quarters, don't let up at all.
That's true.
Sydney can do it.
I think Golden is very important because when y'all struggled, Golden wasn't really there, and Golden's a player who can really bring you a lot. So I think Golden needs to show up.
Yeah. And then another person that I keep an eye on just because he has made an impact occasionally is Justin Mcinerney. He's moved back to the halfback line. He's kind of doing what Blakey did as well with that run and carry. Jake Lloyd is another one that, I mean, it's impact players, but it's really is going to kind of come down to the matchups because there's possibilities. I've heard rumors Joey Kennedy may be back. We just don't know what his percentage is. And then could Callum Mills get up from his tendonitis and his Achilles? The injury issue, I think, is going to be the thing. If Sydney loses, the injuries are going to kill them because in the guts of the field where GWS is very strong, that's where the injuries are happening. Now, they potentially could have Chad Warner, but he hasn't played in weeks and he's only been playing VFL or scratch matches. That's not AFL level. And the finals is a step up. The game always gets harder, faster, and more intense in the finals. And he doesn't have that experience. So it'll be really interesting to see. But there isn't a team in the finals this year that I honestly cannot sit here and say I can see why they can, but I can also see a reason why they can't.
Right. Sydney, like you said, like Warner, if Warner and Golden both hold up their end and they both are in the guts in the midfield, I don't think it'll be a problem.
And then also, you got to throw in the budget factor, too, because that man's just 8 goals away from 1,000. So, obviously, we don't want
to see that, though. I do.
I'm trying to see that. Hopefully not the expensive of the Giants, at least. I
don't think he's going to kick. I'm a diehard City fan. I don't think he's going to kick. If he kicks 8, GWS is in trouble.
If he kicks 8, GWS better lose that game, okay?
But actually, funny fact here before we move on, Buddy's biggest ever goal kick was 13. It's at the same stadium they're playing the game this round. Buddy kicked 13 against North Melbourne at Utah's stadium the last time he played there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit worried about this game, but it's going to be a fun one taking place at what? It's going to be 1:20 Eastern U.S. time. Of course, Coach Ryan Hesai, we're going to be staying up for that game because we get part 3 of the Sydney Derby in 2021. So we're going to have a little bit of a late night streaming session if you guys want to come along and see us. Either one of us is going to be very happy and one of us is going to be very, very sad. That's for sure. It's the
rubber match since they're 1-1. Somebody's going to get the win in the series this year.
You can run our West Coast Carlton game back if you want to see me sad. So
hey.
It's on our channel.
Go check that one out, please, because I'm sure that's just. I always it's always fun, man. Like, there's plenty of times where you've seen me just emotionally distraught. You should see me like, oh man, I forget which Giants game it was, but I was so depressed this round. So I had to go find it when it was. All I know is that it was tough. But let's roll.
I had to talk him off.
Y'all should have seen me against Frio.
Oh man.
Round 22.
Oh boy.
That's a bad one. But every AFL fan goes through this. So luckily we're not all alone. But let's take a look at the 5th team here, finishing off the bottom 4 of the finals teams. Let's take a look at the Western Bulldogs, and obviously you got to look at names like Marcus Bontempelli. For guys that you're going to need to stop, you got to take a look at Adam Treloar for guys that are going to be huge to them. Even guys like got to throw in Jamari Ugelhagen in this one too, because I think he might be overshadowed just by the amount of pure talent that they have on this roster. So. Obviously, you're going to lean on those guys if you want to, if they're going to actually be getting wins here. Maybe even like guys like Josh Dunkley as well. But I am so damn worried about this team because they've lost 3 in a row now. They just don't look good. They don't look there. And so for me, those names are going to be why they can win the grand final. But given how they've looked recently, and like Donnie, I really had to take a look at momentum. Things might not bode well in the first round, especially against the hottest team in the competition with the Essendon Dons.
Okay, yeah. Dogs, like you said, they have all the names. They have the strong player. They have the Jalor. They have the Montebelli. You have Bailey Smith. You have everybody. You probably are. I don't remember your midfield really being too much hurt besides Josh Dunkley, for the most part. Josh Dunkley, and I think for them to win, he'll have to turn up. But the reason they won't is like you said, they just haven't looked good. They've been looking out of form. It's just like they've been pulled out of the plug. They just can't seem to find form through the ruck position and the forward position. I think Ugenhagen, I think it's tough to bank on all these young players, or really all these players who haven't been playing up to form in recent weeks, at least, to just assume that they're going to come against the finals against a hot team, like you said, and to just win it. I think Ugenhagen have to really play it tough. Have to be on game. I think Dunkley will. I think Lockie Hunter will. And I think Bontempelli has a lot of pressure on him, considering that you're the captain of the team. You've been the one that showed that you can turn the game around, but you haven't been able to do that recently. So
that's a good point.
All right. I'll be the odd one out. I think the Dogs will be fine. I think the Dogs are coming in, even though they have lost the last 3 games. Throughout the season, this being my first season, I have seen a lot of the good teams have their ups and downs all season. And the Dogs came in, I think they won 8 or 9 straight. I don't think a 3-game losing streak is going to affect them too much. Even their last game against Port, they had great moments. They definitely are still a top contender team. It's just they didn't put the points on the board. Their problem right now is the goal scoring. And that if they put the goals, if they make the goals, if they get the kicks, I know they'll get the kicks. If they make the goals, then they'll win. And that's one of Essendon's biggest problems. Is stopping the scoring. So I think the Dogs have a good chance. I think they're gonna be decent in the finals.
What goal scorer do you think? Who do you think? What forward do you think is going to step up for them? Because they haven't had a forward step up since Josh Gruden. So
I might not even be the 4. I think Bond is really gonna put pressure up, but I think Waitman is gonna surprise a lot of people.
We haven't even spoken to him. We haven't spoken about this. True.
The Flea is a good one. For me, I think why they can't. They have such that. I mean, you kind of said it. The midfield is superstars, absolute superstars, absolute guns. I mean, Bontempelli potentially is going to win the Brownlow this year. If he steps up and has a game like he had in a few of those games early in the season, like Jake Stringer mentioned earlier with Essendon, he can take over and completely change a game. But I think the reason that they may struggle in these finals is they don't have a real ruck right now. Tim English is a forward primarily. I mean, he can play ruck, but he's not very effective. And I think it's what's really been killing them these last few rounds is that they've been kind of relying on English for a good portion of the middle of the year. And I think he's starting to get weary of that ruck role because it is tough. You have so much more running. Your body goes through so much because of each of the ruck roles that I think that's going to kill them. Will we see a Josh Shackey or a Jordan Sweet come in and step up and give English a little relief to where he can go play forward, which I think then will help out a Waitman and a Naughton, because those guys need help, because that's what Bruce was. Bruce was the other target forward. So Naughton could crash packs, so could Waitman, and then their other small forwards and midfielders could benefit and have all those crumbs. So can Stephen Martin potentially or Jordan Sweet come in, stabilize their ruck, calm them down, and no offense, can the midfield from the Western Bulldogs start playing better defensively? They have been hunting the ball so much, they've been getting themselves out of position. One handball, boom, 3 Bulldogs are beaten, and that has what has really been killing them these last couple of rounds. what Bulldogs show up? Does the Bulldogs earlier in the year that nobody could stop them? Or is it going to be the Bulldogs of the last 3 rounds where they're trying so hard to get themselves back into form, they're actually playing worse?
Isn't that a crazy statement right there? But let's roll into the top 4 here. First one is going to be Brisbane. I was kind of worried about them, ever since they lost Hipwood, because they lost their first 2 after he went down with that ACL injury. They got the win. Then they're still kind of shaky on that end, but they finished off the season on a high note here. And obviously, so I think, it's tough because I'm going to say this for the rest of the top 4 teams here, but there's just something about each team that I am worried about and I'm concerned about. And there's just something that's kind of tugging me to not tip them ultimately. Honestly, I guess maybe we'll get to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I think I'll give you a little insight into my tipping here in my bracket. I think the grand final winner comes from one of the bottom 4 teams in this one. But we're going to take a look at the Brisbane Lions, and why they can win the grand final this year is going to be because of guys like Zach Bailey. It's going to be the Charlie Camerons of the world, and it's going to be the fact that this team, when they're on, and they can put a lot of the points on the scoreboard very, very quickly. So if you lose a grip for about 5 minutes of this game, it could be over just like that. So that's what scares me about this team, similar to how they looked last season when they finished second in the comp. They were this team that was scrappy. It was hard to really get good possessions against them, and they just put up points and went on some momentum swings. But like I said, they've just been so hit or miss ever since losing Hipwood, and that really kind of worries me going to the finals here.
I can agree on that to some extent. I don't think they absolutely need Hipwood because we've seen in the last couple of weeks when they are on, their forward line just looks beautiful. It just looks ridiculous. I think when Brisbane is on, I can agree with you 100% on the earlier part that you said. When they're on. Oh, and I think, to me personally, I think Brisbane has the most beautiful just ball movement of footy when it comes down to it when they are on. And like you said, I'm a big fan of Zach Bailey, and he comes if he goes missing, I think they're going to be in trouble. I do think that, but when he is on, he impacts the game, no doubt. Charlie Cameron, same thing. Joe Danaher scored a goal each game, so you can book him at least having 1 goal. So I think that's why they could. If they don't win, I think it's because just their defensive players aren't up to form. I think Harris Andrews, he's come back from injury. We'll see how that goes. If he can come back and he can play well. Mitch Robinson too, I think, and those are 2 of their most important players on defense. Excuse me. So I think that'll be a big reason. Also, just if Lachie Neal continues to play, if he played how he did at the beginning of the season and was missing, I don't think they can afford that. I think they need their whole. I think they need their whole midfield to be able to dial in Gluggage and Lachie Neal. I think that's what it really comes down to, and Zach Bailey. So.
All right. So I agree. If they lose, I think it's going to be 100% because of their defense. Because I think Brisbane has the best offense in the AFL right now, and I also think they've been getting better. I think throughout the whole year, they had a really rough start to the season. I think they lost their first 4 or 5 games, but they've been progressively getting better to these last few rounds. They've been scoring in 120s, 130s. Their ball movement has been getting better. Their unselfishness with the ball, it's just they're the only team in the top 8 that I see that has constantly just been improving week after week after week. And I think that's going to continue into the finals. If anybody has great momentum, the best momentum, I think it's Brisbane. And I'm expecting them to keep that going through the final series.
And you guys took all the great points. For me, the way they win it is offense. They are incredibly difficult to stop. They score, and they score. Their midfielders kick goals. Their forwards kick goals. Their defenders kick goals. When you've got Daniel Rich back there with one of the best kicks off his left boot, he can put in goals. That's dangerous. That is tough to stop. But I agree. The reason that they could lose is their defense has been suspect at times. Sometimes it's hard for them to stop teams with really good forwards. So it'd be very interesting to see their matchup with the Melbourne Demons, because the Demons forward lines has been kind of suspect occasionally. So it'll really have to see how that matchup goes. And can the vaunted D's defense shut down Brisbane? So this is a Brisbane team. They get on a roll. They are incredibly difficult to stop. But they are one of those, if you can keep them down a little bit and put up a few points, then they get weary and they kick behind. They're a very inaccurate team at times. That's what really killed them last year in the finals, was their inaccurate goal kicking in the preliminary finals last year, which really cost them a chance to play at home in the grand final last year.
I want to add something, because since I didn't watch last season, I'm glad you said that, because I can kind of see Charlie Cameron specifically how unselfish he's being with the ball. He's making sure he gets that extra pass for the good shot instead of just kind of rushing in. And I can see how bad they want it, how Charlie Cameron's getting mad at not good goals. Even if he scores a goal, if it's not the best percentage goal, he'll still be upset at that. And I like that in a team leader. So.
That's good
Very
stuff
well
to see
said.
from him. And then let's go here. Moving to the third team, of course, is the Geelong Cats. And I mean, I don't know what other thing to say than the reason that they could win the grand final is because of that just ruthless three-headed monster that they have going on between Dangerfield, Hawkins, and Cameron this year. When Cameron's in the game, and he can kick 3-4 goals. The other guys, I mean, they could combine for anywhere between 8 to 4 goals or 8 to 12 goals a game, and no one would really bat an eye at that or really be too shocked. So obviously that's something huge there. But they've been off recently, kind of mentioned in a round 23 review, is that they've kind of stumbling into the finals at this point. They haven't looked great, and this isn't anything too similar than what we've seen from them in the past. Them stumbling into the finals and kind of closing the season on a little bit of a low note. So I'm really curious to see if they're able to pick things up, because this first round matchup isn't going to be anything easy with Port Adelaide. So I don't know, man. Like, this team, with how they looked, I guess recent form, it caused me to push back on them, and that's my biggest worry with them.
Yeah, Geelong's recent struggles really been having me really questioning what they have going on, or really how far they can make it into the finals. So the reason I think that they can win the grand final, I think they're just master of possession. They mastered the art of playing fast when they need to, playing slow when they need to, and taking the air out of the footy and just really squeezing you to death until you feel like you can't really do much. You know what I'm saying? They're good at defense. They can shut you down when they need to. They have, like you said, the forward line, and also you can introduce Rowan there too. They just have all those dangerous players, and they have the great defense as well. But the reason why they might not win it is, I think their midfield is okay. I think Cam Guthrie's a good player. He gets to dispose of numbers, but he's not as damaging a player as a lot of these other midfield players that we have in finals right now. So I think that might get neutralized. Also with Tom Stewart, like, we can't stress it enough. I think Tom Stewart is really important. Well, if he doesn't play at all in finals, I don't think they can win. Just plain and simple. Just keep it one.
So for me, I think Geelong's thing is they have to play at their own pace. If they play how they want to play, they'll win the game. So the reason I think they'll lose is if a team just outruns them. Their speed is kind of lacking. If you get around them, I think you can beat them. If you can get around them consistently and make goals off it, make them pay for it, then yeah. But Geelong, they're a good, well-rounded team. If you let them play how they want, they're gonna eat you alive every time. So they're a tough matchup against anybody. They have also, I think, the most experience out of players, out of finals players. So they're just going to be composed. They're going to be ready. They know what they need to do, what they have to do. It's just, can they get it done? I'm excited to see what they do in the finals.
Oh, good old Geelong. It's a very interesting team every year, because they do have one of the most experienced teams every year. For me, the reason that they win the title is Danger. If Dangerfield plays the way Dangerfield can, he is the most devastating player in the league next to Dusty Martin. Plain and simple. It's very hard to argue that, because when he's on, he's on. I agree. I think the Tom Stewart injury could be the death nail for Geelong's season because he was such the glue to that defensive team. He is the great intercept marker and a great ball mover. He was just as good as intercepting as he was moving the ball up the field. So then their midfields, the Duncans, the Selwoods, the Dangerfields, even Reece Stanley when he decides when he wants to play the rock situation, they can move the footy. And then when you've got Hawkins, one of the most deadly forwards in the game, Jeremy Cameron, who's sneaky good, you've got Garen Myers, you've got Gary Rowan, you've got so many weapons on this Geelong team that if they get going, they're very, very difficult to stop. But if you can pepper them and pressure that defense, their age will show. So they're deadly good offensively. They can score on anybody. But defensively is where their problems could lie without Tom Stewart. They've still got a lot of talent there, but if you can keep peppering them, if you can continue to pressure their defensive, I think it breaks, and that could be the death nail for Geelong in this season with the injury that unfortunately came at the worst possible time.
Yeah, isn't that just? I almost feel bad for them because I want every team. I mean, unless GWS is playing them, I want every team to be healthy because I want as good as finals as I can. So that one is obviously a really tough one to see there. But let's roll into the second best team in the comp, the 2020 minor premiers. They fall just barely short in their quest to repeat that this year. But we got the Port Adelaide Power, and the Port Adelaide Power, after their come from behind win against the Western Bulldogs, that was absolutely devastating to the Bulldogs, and a really good momentum swinger for Port Adelaide here. And I mean, so the thing that really is, I think Travis Boak might be a little bit underrated. He could be a huge key come finals here. Obviously, you're going to have some of the bigger names, like Charlie Dixon. You got possible Brownlow medalist Ollie Wines that's going to dominate in that midfield. So he's going to be an absolute force that you're going to have to watch out for there. The whole thing, though, it's like last season I wasn't super confident in Port Adelaide. Of course, they made to the preliminary finals there, but they lost in that round. This whole season, at least for 2/3 of it, they just look like flat track bullies. They look like guys that were really good against non-top 8 teams, but then would always lose against the top 8 teams. And over the last couple of rounds, they've been able to stop or at least slow the conversation on that talk a little bit, and so that gives me a little bit of confidence in them. But overall, what we've seen from the season is that when it comes to real competition, a lot of the times they're not able to get things done. So that might be the biggest reason why they can't win the grand final this year.
All right, so just because we have the same reason why they won't, I think they haven't. Like, we can all attest to it. We all watch footy. We know Port doesn't beat top teams. Even though I did tip them to win the Dogs, that's really mostly a testament to the Dogs' recent form rather than what Port can do or what Port will do, rather, because we all know Port can be good with how well-structured the roster is and stuff like that. But they won't win because, and I'm going to say they're not going to win the premiership. I'm going to put it right here because it's a far cry to say that they're going to win 3-4 in a row against top 8 teams. It's just not going to happen. I just don't believe in it. So they're not going to win the grand final. The reason why they will is because they really have great players at each level. They have Alir, who's been crazy, ridiculous key defender this year, especially in recent weeks. You have Ollie Wines, like you touched on, and I think he's really the reason why Trav Boak is really underrated this year, why he didn't make All-Australian. You have those players. You have Connor Rosie, who can show when he wants to, when he comes in and affects the game. He's pretty hard to stop. And you have all the forwards. You have Marshall, you have Georgiadis, you have Dixon, you have Robbie Gray. It's just, how can you not win a championship with all those numbers? Right. But you just can't beat any good teams, and it's just crazy. So that's why they can and can't.
Yeah, Port has the best looking team on paper. I've been saying that all year. They just seem like they have all their bases covered. On top of that, I think they've been the most consistent team all year. Even though they haven't beat any teams under the 8, they have consistently done that all year. So that's why I have so much problem with believing that they're going to make it far in it. far in the finals because of that. Their most convincing game was this last game against the Dogs, and I don't even think that was convincing. Dogs definitely could have put that game away if they just put the points on the board, and they didn't do that.
They weren't even playing their best at home.
Yeah, Port is another team also that plays at their own pace. They usually kind of have a slow start the first half and then get going in the second. And a lot of these top teams, that's just not going to fly. You have to play all four quarters at top capacity, and Port isn't a team that always does that. So I really just don't see them getting that far in the finals like that.
Okay, I love the comments. I appreciate it. Hey Ross, can you remember who did I have winning the grand final at the start of the season?
I think you're kind of spot on this one with this one.
I
so,
had
so for
Port
your
Adelaide.
tip, you're very good with the grand final tip.
Yeah, well, I had Port Adelaide winning the whole thing at the start of the season, and for me, Port Adelaide, I completely agree. They are on paper the scariest team because there is talent in each and every section of the field. It's damaging. It does a lot of things. The thing is, I completely agree, but I think the reason that they've been so inconsistent is because of some of the injuries that they had. Zach Butters was gone most of this season. Connor Rosie was injured for a good portion of the season. Orazio Fantasia, as deadly as he is just not consistently been on the park. And Xavier Dersma. There's 4 of some of your better players. Robbie Gray's been injured. So this is a Port team that has not really been at 100% most of the season. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I like Port going into this finals, because none of these teams have really seen the best Port this year. I don't think Port's played to its best. I think they might be one of these sleeper teams in the top 4 because we really don't know what their best footy is because they haven't played it. And for me, I'd rather be playing my best footy now than round 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, 16. I want to play it now.
Okay, so
because go ahead.
Okay, so but listen, the question is, since Port hasn't played their best footy, do they even know what their best footy is? Let's keep that in mind. So can we just assume that their best footy is going to get played? We don't even know that because they don't even know that.
This is a good point.
That's how I feel about that.
No.
And just to be defensive, I picked them as my minor premiership. My minor premiere is preseason. So me and you are kind of on the same boat.
Yep. I had Port. I had Port winning the whole entire thing this year, and I think I had them finishing second, I think, as well. So, but I don't know. I've had this belief in them all season. Call it blind loyalty, call it blind list. I don't know what it is. But as you just said, you've kind of actually given me my reason why they can't, because we don't know.
Yeah.
Can they play their best footy come finals time? The one thing that I think maybe the sneaky advantage that they have is because they finished second, they're playing all their games at the Adelaide Oval. Most of the other games are not being played at a home team's home ground. So they're going to have a massive advantage, at least for this one. Now, there's still kind of conjecture on whether they'll play the preliminary. If they win, will they play their preliminary round game at the Adelaide Oval, or will it be in Perth or the Gabba? We don't know. Right now, that's still up in the air. But if they do, that's a massive advantage just before the grand final. That could get them to a grand final when then you've only got to win one game on foreign soil to win a premiership.
Sure.
That's going to be a tough one, man. This team is either going to be extremely, I guess, exciting, and or they're going to disappoint a lot of people. It's this weird enigma that they have around them. So obviously, it's going to be a storyline to watch. But let's cap this segment off with talking about the best team, or at least the best team according to points and percentage points in all of the competition. Let's take a look at the Melbourne Demons, because this is a team that, just had such a damn good game against the Geelong Cats. And honestly, this saved my opinion on them, because I've been so worried about along with the Western Bulldogs, but I've been kind of worried about the Melbourne D's over the last number of rounds. But this was a big prove-it game, and they definitely proved it. So I love this momentum that they're riding with. Max Gawn is going to be a force. And obviously, you got to look at their defense. Their defense has been pretty much lights out the entire season. but they're going to be going up against the best offensive team in the competition. That when we talked about Brisbane, they are the best team offensively in the comp, from top to bottom. So, is their defense going to be able to live up to it? I'm not sure if they're. My problem is that their scoring has been so kind of. It's been tough the last 4, 5, 6 rounds. They haven't been able to put up a lot of points. So I'm worried that they won't be able to defend enough against Brisbane to be able to. I think Brisbane just might be able to outscore them even with that great defense. I'm not sure if they could just keep pace.
So exactly. So Melbourne's defense, like I think we all can agree, just great defense. Just back line is just phenomenal.
Yes.
I think if I read something correctly, it said Jake Lever has had like the highest average intercept mark percentage ever of any footy season ever.
Was it like
So
like 3 or 4 a game? Is that
right?
I think 3 point. It's like 3.8. The previous high was like 2.6. So it's almost a full point ahead.
That's
it's insane.
Crazy.
But that's his
something
game.
crazy
Though.
to have.
That's his
and
game.
You have like they're gonna win because you have Max gone, who's pivotal in the ruck, and look, he doesn't have to go against Nick Nat. He doesn't have to go against Grundy. You get what I'm saying? So look, he's gonna dominate there. They have the midfield to support the ruck position too. It's just, and then when Melbourne gets going, they look great too. Because Clayton Oliver, you just can't let me not leave him out too. Just him and Petrarca, if they're both playing, is great. And then Max Gone is getting it to him. Oh, come on, man. It's gonna be dangerous. If Kazi Pickens can show up, even better. But the problem is, are they gonna get the scoring? And it's just I think we might, I don't know if we all will have the same answer, but I don't think that they will have enough scoring. Just the forward options I don't think are enough compared to all the other teams that are 1 through 4, like the Ports, the Geelongs, the Brisbanes. That's where they don't stack up.
So, yeah, like you said, we all know they have probably the best defense in the AFL. And I think the defense is going to get wore down. I think the rest of the teams in the 8, they're full of except Essendon. They're full of scorers that can really put a lot of points on the board really fast. And I think it's just going to get to them because Melbourne can be beat. At the beginning, I think they were like 9-0 this year. Melbourne can be beat. Their first losses were not against good teams. They were against teams that just put a lot of pressure on them and constantly worked till Melbourne kind of just fell apart a little bit. And all these teams in the 8 can definitely do that to Melbourne. So but I've also been saying it seems like they have a hidden gear that they haven't really shown yet. They have little spurts like that second half against Geelong. That was probably the best I've seen them play all year. So I can see them being the team to make it. It's just, can that defense hold up?
All absolutely great points. I mean, I think we've all heard a defense wins championships, but in footy, in some situations, you can't just be a defensive team. Yes, their defense can win them a championship because they can hold so many teams with Lever and May, and then having Salem as that rebounding halfback that can kick it out. He's very deadly. But I think teams have went to work on these guys. I think what Alistair Clarkson did against them earlier in the year when they got the draw, I think he gave that little bit of tip on how to take May Lever out of the game. So I think if I'm Melbourne, I'm a tiny bit worried because your playbook's out there. People have kind of started to figure it out. As this season has gone on, they have looked less and less impressive in their wins. And all due respect, Geelong should have won that game. In my personal opinion, Geelong let off the gas and let Melbourne back into it, and several errors late in the game, including an absolute brain fade by Cameron Guthrie, kicking it down the line in his own park, which we know is a skinny ground.
And Close didn't even help spoiling it.
Exactly.
Give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yep. And Close, exactly. And that really did. That cost the game. And then Reece Stanley not paying attention to Max Gawn getting the mark. And then Max Gawn for once being able to kick it straight. All due respect, Melbourne Demons fans, but that's honest to God truth. Max Gawn is not exactly the greatest kicker.
You saw that pretty nice banana kick he had a couple of rounds ago.
Yeah, but sometimes the more difficult kicks when you don't think, that's when you get the moment of brilliance.
Right.
It's the easy 10-meter kick in front of goal that you stuff up. So, no, Melbourne defensively they can win the championship. Midfield and ruck wise, I completely agree. The midfield group pair of Clayton Oliver and Christian Petrarca are damn near impossible to stop. Max Gawn is the best ruckman in the entire 8 of all of the 8 ruckmen. He is the best.
Easily.
But I agree, forward of it, there's so many question marks. Is Ben Brown going to be consistent enough? Can Keziah Pickett stay in the game and make an impact? He can disappear at times.
Absolutely.
Does Bailey Fritsch have a 1-goal game or a 4-goal game? Does Bailey Fritsch get in trouble? How's their tackling? So there's so many question marks to this Melbourne team. I'm much less confident in Melbourne now than I was 10 rounds ago when it looked like they were just going to steamroll this competition. I think the armor has been chipped away from Melbourne. They are a really good team. I think they can go far, but they are just vulnerable enough that who knows? This is, again, a year where anything can happen. This is going to be an insane finals. I cannot wait.
Absolutely. I mean, that's very well said. And so that's our look at these 8 teams specifically. And so, I mean, with the meat and potatoes out of the way, it's time to get into dessert. Okay, I mean, what we guys feeling tonight? A little chocolate cake action with these predictions. Oh man, I'm gonna make myself way too hungry for this. But
so we got a heat warning in here. I'll take some ice cream.
Oh yes, all right, vanilla or chocolate?
I'm a cookies and cream type of ice cream type of person. Give me a little bit of Oreo action on that one.
I'm with you.
Mint chip is a good ice cream flavor, and will not hear otherwise.
Oh, you might as well eat toothpaste.
Okay, I hate that argument so much. I hate that. But okay, okay.
Yeah,
you know what? I should expect a disappointing answer
awesome.
from a guy that supports a team like that. So it's okay.
They say no. In the finals.
Oh, the barbs are out. The barbs are out. No,
Don't be the reason why he don't like GWS, man.
It's the Australian way. You got to take a little bit of shit and got to be able to give it just right back, and then you're still mates at the end.
Y'all know probably on YouTube, them fans will give you shit.
I swear, if I see y'all rate my comment section on this video, okay, I'm gonna have some words.
Do y'all have a fan favorite? Because I think he's the fan favorite because they give me all the shit, bro. When we're live.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the video. I know he's riled up Richmond and Collingwood.
Oh, I've also pissed off some fans. I pissed off a lot of fans by just even mentioning the possibility of overtime. They didn't like that.
One of the first draws, he went right to it.
After playing some USA AFL games, I'm with them on fuck overtime. Game over. Game over.
I was laid out in the grass.
Game over.
Oh, I love that. Oh, man. But ladies and gentlemen, let's roll into our predictions. We're going to give you our finals brackets here. And I think the best way to do this is just by having each man go through theirs. And we'll just go into rotation here. So how about I throw it on over to Steez? You want to take this? You want to start us off here?
All right. So go all the way through.
Yeah.
Finals all the way grand final, right?
Top to
Who's
bottom.
Who's gonna win your granny, and how's it get there?
Okay. All right. So I think Brisbane will end up winning the grand final.
Okay.
That's my
Brisbane,
final.
like that.
Which I didn't, and to be honest, I actually didn't even think that was going to be my prediction until I got to the chart, and I was like, man,
right? Isn't that how it goes? Like you have one team in mind, but then you actually go through the matchups, and it's a completely different team.
Yeah. And I had Geelong winning like week 19, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not convinced with the Tom Stewart. Mm-hmm. So first week I had Melbourne versus Brisbane. I had Brisbane winning that to the 1-4 matchup. The 5-8 matchup, I have Essendon beating the Dogs and eliminating them from the finals. I have Sydney beating GWS, so GWS eliminated from finals. And then I have Port at Adelaide Oval beating Geelong, which I didn't actually think. That's the one that I wavered through the most. And that one might bite me in the ass. So moving on to the semifinals, I have Melbourne beating Essendon in the second round, eliminating Essendon from finals. And the Sydney-Geelong matchup, the 6-3 matchup, I have Geelong getting it done, eliminating Sydney. So that leaves Brisbane versus Geelong. I think Brisbane will eliminate them in the preliminary finals, with Melbourne beating Port, and in the grand final, Port versus Melbourne. Brisbane versus Melbourne, and Brisbane winning.
Okay. Hey, throw on over to Don, man. Let's see what you got then.
All right, so
I like that. I like that bracket though. I really do.
It's crazy because we didn't talk about this at all before we got here.
No.
But I also,
That's why you look like that?
I love it.
I also have Brisbane winning
Whoa.
this grand finals.
My boy, this one here.
But it's about who do they play in the grand final?
We have a lot different way to get there.
Mm.
We actually have the same grand finals matchup, Brisbane versus Geelong. Wait,
Okay.
no. Oh, we don't have the same.
Yeah.
We got Brisbane versus Geelong in the grand finals. Now, how we get there? All right, round one of the finals. The winners are going to be Brisbane, the Dogs, GWS, and Geelong as the winners of those games. Semifinals is Melbourne versus Dogs. I got Melbourne winning that. Then we got GWS versus Port. And I got GWS winning that.
Okay.
So prelims is Brisbane, GWS. Brisbane's winning that.
Mm-hmm.
Melbourne, Geelong. Geelong gets the win. Then grand finals, Brisbane, Geelong. Brisbane coming out on top.
So rematch of this week.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a fun one. Donnie, let's see what you got then.
All
Some good ones
right.
here.
Well, unfortunately for the two are great guests here, I do not have Brisbane winning the whole.
We're not
thing,
fans.
so.
It's okay.
Nah, it's awesome. I have Melbourne. I have Melbourne beating Brisbane. I think Melbourne's defense shuts down Brisbane a little bit. Brisbane's inconsistency in the back, I think, is going to hurt them a little bit on that one. I agree with you, Steez. I have the Dons beating the Doggies. I don't like the way the Doggies are playing. I think Draper's going to have a field day, no matter if they get Martin or English. I have Sydney beating GWS just because I think Sydney has that ruck advantage with Hickey being able to move a little bit more on Mumford. I think things have kind of changed a little bit. My worry again is that midfield matchup, but I think Sydney just has a little too much in a few different places. I have Port beating Geelong playing in Adelaide. I think is a huge advantage. And Geelong is not very good in that first round matchup. They are 2-7 in their first games of the finals. So they've not played really well. I don't know what it is. They just have this little funk about them. Elimination finals or the semis, Brisbane versus Essendon. I have Brisbane. I think the Dons just run out of a little bit of energy on this one. I think Brisbane's offense, it will catch the Dons defense. The Dons defense has been a little shaky at times. I have Sydney knocking out Geelong. I think Tom Stewart's injury will get them in this one just because of Sydney's offensive abilities. I don't think Geelong really has that guy that can shut down Buddy. If Buddy is healthy, I think that's a bad matchup, especially no Tom Stewart. So that will leave a Melbourne versus Sydney preliminary final and Brisbane versus Port. I have Melbourne beating Sydney. Melbourne's defense, I think, can shut them down. May did really, really well against Buddy earlier in the year. And that vaunted midfield of Petrarca and Clayton Oliver, I think is just going to have a little too much, even if Kennedy or Mills are going to be able to play for Sydney. And then I have Port beating Brisbane. I think Port's ability to shut down Brisbane's forward line, I think Aliir and Houston and McKenzie, I think will be able to shut down Danaher and some of that gives us a Melbourne Port grand final. And I tipped him at the start of the year. I don't know why. Again, this weird thing. I have the Port Adelaide Power beating the Melbourne Demons in the final, just because, like I said, that young offensive ability. I think Melbourne Melbourne will have been beaten up a little bit in the previous game against Sydney, and I think they may have given them a little bit of a tip. So I'm going to have the Power winning the whole thing in Perth.
Where you located?
Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, I'll fly out there and shake your hand in Port Wayne.
Oh.
I've been to Iowa before, man. I've been to Des Moines, actually. Go ahead, though, man. My bad.
All right, Ross.
I kind of went on a different route than all three of you, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one if I'm being honest.
Oh, geez.
Fucking GWS.
No, it actually isn't. Because GWS,
I was thinking that.
It's okay.
I was thinking that at
GWS,
first.
I have them losing to Sydney, so it's okay. It's okay.
He's got to keep his Sydney love going.
Dude, I have to keep my Sydney love, and it's working from you, Don. When you tip against GWS, or when you tip against Sydney, normally they win. So I'm going to tip against GWS, so they win. Okay. I'm just going to keep that going there. But
That works.
I feel, Donnie, you were riding Port Adelaide all season long. I mean, from preseason to now. So you stick with your guns, and I love that. I'm going to be a little bit bold here because I'm going to stick with my preseason guns And the Sydney Swans are going to win the grand final this season.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
As a sixth team. I told you it was going to be a bottom 4 team that wins the grand final. And I got the
Okay,
Sydney
you got to
Swans
tell me,
winning.
how does this go? I
Okay,
got
so
to hear this.
He said, how does this go?
Here we go. Finals week 1. Of course, Sydney's going to beat GWS. And then I got Port Adelaide beating Geelong. I have Essendon knocking the Western Bulldogs out of the finals, and the Bulldogs are going to lose 4 in a row and just end the season on such a bad note, especially with how they looked earlier in the year. And I have the Brisbane Lions taking out the Melbourne D's. All right? So, now we go into the semifinals. We have Essendon beating the Melbourne Demons, knocking them out of the finals. Okay.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Now I got Sydney knocking Geelong out of the finals in this one. We're going to have the prelim finals of Sydney beating Brisbane and Port Adelaide beating Essendon. So that's going to give us Sydney versus Port Adelaide. Donnie's favorite team against the team he's tipping at the grand final. So Sydney beats Port Adelaide in the grand final.
Wow. A rematch of that 10-point thriller in Adelaide where Lysette kicked that goal late. Wow.
I want that game.
It's bold. That was a good game. I thought that was a really, really good game for Sydney. Though they lost that one, they were really competitive in that entire game. So that was a good one.
I love that.
Wow. I like your boldness. Essendon knocking out Melbourne. He's taking a stretch there, but if it pulls off, man, you're gonna look like Nostradamus.
Exactly. See, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, Donnie knows full well. All my other co-hosts know full well, like my UFC guy, my NFL guy. They all know that I'm the one that's going to take bold takes. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm about 50-50 when it comes to my really hot takes like this. So, I mean,
And sometimes it gets hates in his YouTube comments.
Oh, hey, whatever breeds interaction and views, okay? You got to grow the show like that. But that's how I'm going with. But I love all this from, we got both you guys tipping Brisbane. We got Donnie going with Port Adelaide. Got me going with the Sydney Swans. And, man, this was like going through this, like I said at the beginning, this was just such a tough one to tip because each one was like, ooh, so I felt the one I feel best about in the week 1 is Brisbane over Melbourne, or maybe Essendon over the Bulldogs. But like Sydney GWS, that's such a toss up. Geelong really could be Port Adelaide. I'm not sure if Port Adelaide could live up to this. And then everything here, like every pick I made, it felt like the wrong one until I got to the grand final.
I was so conflicted with the GWS Sydney game because both those teams I think could have potential to make it really far in the finals. But I think they're the two teams that I think are going to go out there put the most on the field just because I feel like they're underdogs. They're both young, barely made it into the final. Well, Sydney had it first comfortable, but they can't. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but Sydney was such a hard decision for me because until last week, I really thought Sydney was going to be the little sleeper team that made it all the way to the grand finals. Then they matched up with GWS, and it's like, I don't know now. And that ruined everything for me.
And that's just kind of the way this season has been, and I don't expect it any other way because, Ross could be completely right. I mean, you could literally see Brisbane. You could see all of the lower-seeded teams win in the first round, and then all hell breaks. Which, I mean, it's going to be fascinating because there's so many tangible ways this could go. I mean, you literally could see a point where you could see Melbourne and Port Adelaide play each other in a preliminary final, 1 versus 2, play each other in a preliminary final. So that's how, which it may sound stupid, but I think it brings more intrigue to. That's why I love the crossover game because it does lead to some very interesting permutations. And you could still get 1 versus 2 in the championship game because, as Ross kind of pointed out, the statistics: 8 out of the last 10 flag winners have come from second or third. Only one flag winner in the last 10 years has come from the number 1 spot. So that's why some people have questioned Melbourne a little bit because of previous history. Now, again, each year is different, but 8 of the last 10 have been from 2 or 3, 1 at number 1, and the other one came from 7th, and that was the Bulldogs in 2016.
Oh, gosh. What wasn't Melbourne the team that finished first and got the grand finals that year? Was it Melbourne?
No, because they didn't win anything recently, I don't think.
I think the one seed the one year was I'd have to look. I think it was
Did you long?
Hawthorn. No, I think it was Hawthorn.
Hawthorne.
I think it was during Hawthorn had that three.
Yeah.
Hawthorn had 3 in a row, and I think one of the years they won. They were the number 1 seed, if I remember correctly. I mean, I can look it up. I just don't want to use a lot of YouTube and recording time to look it up. So,
Sounds good, man.
Well, we can. That's always something that we can figure out post show, and then post on the socials. But man, that looks like it might do it for our 2021 AFL Finals Preview, and this was a fun one, going through each of the teams, going through our predictions, and wrapping up what was a really fun round to talk about. I mean, especially when it comes to trash talking some teams from round 23. The jokes kind of just wrote themselves, unfortunately. Not pointing fingers specifically at West Coast and Carlton, but, the writing is on the wall, or so are the jumpers there. But you guys, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. Huge shout out to our special guest, Steez and Don. So once again, guys, where could they find you, and what are we going to be doing during these finals?
You can find us on really YouTube at Steez and the Don AFL. Find us on and pretty much any other platform at Steez the Don AFL, Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, Facebook. And for the finals, we go live for games. We'll do round recaps. Obviously, we'll do round highlights as well as we'll continue our usual workload. Also, probably give a little couple more ideas that we have going on through finals. So definitely be on the lookout for us. So
yeah, hopefully we can also start bringing some more guests on the show. We have been spreading kind of just our community. So hopefully we have some USAFL guys coming on. Hopefully we get some Aussies come on, talk about the game with us. We're really excited for finals. We got a lot of time to just do stuff, so we're really trying to expand on what we do.
Okay. Love to hear it. I mean, anything that involves spreading the growth of footy throughout the United States and the rest of the world, that's always good news. But something that we do every round is, Donnie, your thoughts on the finals in one word or phrase?
Fascinating. This is going to be an absolutely fascinating grand finals because, again, as we kind of mentioned by all of us, any one of these 8 teams can win the championship. It can win the flag at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. The cup could go to any of 8 teams. It'll be absolutely fascinating. Gentlemen, Steve's done. I cannot wait for you guys to see your first grand final, your first finals, because it is an incredible atmosphere. I'm hoping it is in Perth and it's a sold out show, because there is nothing better than a granny. Ross can tell you from last year, his first granny with Richmond and Geelong last year. Yeah, it was in the GABA. It is an incredible environment. It is so much fun to watch. And I was able to look it up. It was Hawthorn in 2013 was the last team to win the minor premiership and the premiership at the end of the season. So 2013 was the last time somebody who won the regular home and away season won the premiership.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, keep it here, because on YouTube and on Twitch, which is also something that we're going to start doing live shows on here soon, once I get everything else ironed out with that. But Donnie and I will be going live this Friday night or Saturday morning if you're here in some parts of the States, and we're going to be live for part 3 of the Sydney Derby. So we got the GW Strands going up against his Sydney Swans. So obviously that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to come check that out. If you're in America, you want to stay up late for that one, or for all of our Aussie friends, come on and put us on while you're watching all the games and have a good time with the rest of us. But ladies and gentlemen, go out there, enjoy the hell out of the finals. Hopefully your guys' predictions go well, unless they go against mine. Then I hope you're wrong, and I hope I'm right. But it was a pleasure. And who knows, maybe we have to hop on a little bit of a grand final live stream once that time comes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, but ladies and gentlemen,
I'd be down.
I think that'd be a fun one, given how this one went. But ladies and gentlemen, please go check out Season the Dawn everywhere. They will be linked. And enjoy the hell out of the finals. Hopefully your tips come correct.
Yeah, Donnie, Ross, I appreciate y'all having us on. We definitely appreciate it as a channel. I know you appreciate it. It was nice to meet y'all. Definitely good to get some footy conversation going. Always good to get a different perspective. Help us think a little different too as well. So I appreciate it.
Of course.
No problem. I always love spreading the love of footy. So.
Always fun. Always welcome. Go out and have a kick-ass finals, ladies and gentlemen.